Thanks, sir. We'll turn the invocation and pledge over to District 9.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For tonight's invocation, we have Mr. Dan Bailey. He is the headmaster at Highland Rim Academy.
Shall we pray? Heavenly Father, we come to you this evening, and we are first and foremost grateful for the many blessings we have as Americans, as people that live in a great state of Tennessee and here in Putnam County. And Father, I just pray now over this commission as they come together. Father, we just pray that they would be wise stewards of the time and the resources that they are entrusted with as decision makers here for our community. Father, we just pray that they would be faithful in the small things as well as the big things. And I just pray also, Father, that this evening as they dialogue and talk and discuss and vote, Father, that there be a spirit of unity and a spirit of wisdom that rests on each one of them, that their decisions that they make would ultimately be what's best for the citizens of the community, Father, and that would honor and glorify you. And we thank you for each one of them and their heart and their willingness to serve their fellow man in this capacity. And we pray a blessing over each one of their families individually as well. And we love you and we thank you. It's in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, guys. We'll have a roll call.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you'll take your handsets and everybody just press yes and stop right there for me, please. Everybody press yes. All right, now would you, everybody please press confirm for me, please. Everybody press confirm, please. Ah, the sound I like to hear right there. Mr. Chairman, you have all 24 present and accounted for.
All right. Approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I've had a request to move item E3 up to under 7, unfinished business. That's with Tennessee Tech.
Motion to move 9E3 to under 7.
Yes.
We have a second on that?
I'll second that.
All right.
I'll second the motion, Mr. Chair, to move 9E4 to right after approval of the minutes of the previous meeting.
Okay. So do we want to put both of these after item 6? Can we combine these two motions?
Yes.
Good. We have a second on that motion?
I'll second that.
Okay. Is it possible to combine these two motions into one?
Sure.
And put them right after 6, between 6 and 7? Okay. The motion is to move 9E3 to discuss the reapproval to allow 14.5 acres in the Highland Business Park to be for Tennessee Tech Innovation Manufacturing Center. They're reapplying for a grant. And 9E4, due to the resignation of Charles Looper to the County Board of Equalization, a new appointment is needed. That is the motion. Second, any discussion on that? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Approval of the minutes of the previous meeting.
Second.
We have a motion second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay. Under new business 6A, discuss reapproval to allow 14.5 acres to the Highland Business Park to be for Tennessee Tech Innovation Manufacturing Center as they are reapplying for a grant.
It came to our attention that when the original motion was made, that when y'all passed it to allow it, the way the motion was made, if they didn't get the grant, then there was no longer approval. So we just need to reapprove that so they can move forward with their process. And I think, Commissioner Eversole had some questions, and, President Odom is here to address those.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and council members. It's a pleasure to be back with you almost a year later from when we talked about this, and I know that there's some questions. I'll try to address those as best I can. I'm not sure that the rest of the council is familiar with the questions. I don't know if you want to raise those now, or you want me to just go ahead and...
Well, I'm basically, in my travels, in my business, I've managed to go to a lot of universities, and I see these other parks in there, like, you know, Research Triangle.
Right.
A few weeks ago, I was down in Alachua, Florida, to the Progress Park, and, I mean, they've partnering with, and I'm hoping that this is what we're trying to do with that land out there, but I've got all kinds of companies that were spawned off of, you know, joint ventures with the university and all that. And my question is, you know, do we have a plan to do that? What is that plan? I understand you're looking for grant money. What is your business plan? I do scope, schedule, and cost on everything. And we have an opportunity to be able to do that, and I think for me going out and talking to my constituents, it would be best if I could, you know, relay that plan for that land out there, because honestly, it's really not that popular at the moment.
Well, that's actually very helpful, so everybody understands where the question's coming from. And you're exactly right. If you go around the country, you'll see a number of these kinds of examples of parks that have been spawned in cooperation, in many cases, not all cases, but many cases with local universities, and it has been somewhat of a magnet for economic activity. That is absolutely our intent here. We are obviously at a very early stage in this development, and so there's a lot of work to get to where obviously Research Triangle Park is today, as opposed to where they started 30 years ago, or 40 years ago now. But the intent is to stimulate economic activity. Our plan right now is to get the appropriate partners. A lot of work has gone in this year to establish those kind of partnerships locally, obviously with the Highlands Initiative, but also with the Upper Cumberland Development District, USDA Rural Development, and so on and so forth down the line. Obviously, there's a lot of potential players and partners in this kind of activity, and we want to make sure that everybody plays a role as appropriate. What we're hoping to do in the very near future is to see about a 20 to 25,000 square foot building on that piece of property that would roughly be half or possibly 60% of the facility utilized for incubator space for small business incubation. Currently, Tennessee Tech, we're working with approximately 5 startup ventures that are at various stages of development. And at least a couple of those are getting close to the point where they could utilize this kind of space to go to the next level. And so we want to make sure that we have that kind of activity and that kind of opportunity to stimulate that kind of economic growth. Most of these startups that we're working with, they would range in terms of number of jobs created from possibly as few as 5, but as many as 40 when they're fully engaged. Most of them would be relatively high wage paying jobs in the $60,000 to $80,000 range annually. So we're not talking huge numbers of jobs, but we're talking well paying jobs. And so we do have a plan, at least for a basic layout of the building. We have a cost estimate of roughly $4 million to construct the building. The proposal that's being developed now to go to the Federal Economic Development Agency is due to them on June 13th. We would have a full version of that proposal available to the commission members I think, by the first week in June, so you would be able to see the entire plan at that point in time. But at this point in time, you know, some of those details are still a little bit in development. So basically, you know, 20 to 25,000 square feet, $4 million. We're going to be asking for approximately $2.1 million from the Economic Development Agency. Tennessee Tech would be basically on the hook for the balance. We however, are prepared, and I think we're learning from our experience that we don't want to put all our eggs in that one basket. And so we are looking at other options on how to proceed without a grant, if that's the case. And we think we have the capabilities of moving forward, regardless of if this particular proposal is funded or not.
Yeah, I'd be interested in that. I know that we turn out a lot of engineers.
Mm-hmm.
From what I understand, it's the most in the state. And the biggest problem is that's a lot of quality people that are going other
That's right.
places. And is there anything in place now to try to develop business or to try to keep those people here or working with other companies, not necessarily in Cookeville, but I mean in other states? I mean, with the internet and everything else, you can contract work anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, it's interesting because of the startup companies that we're working with and trying to cultivate now, they vary from healthcare-related business that's sort of information technology type sector to pharmaceutical company to an engineering firm that actually would make specialty hardware. And so all of these would require a workforce that is highly trained. Certainly engineers would be appropriate, in many cases people with scientific degrees as well. So that's our intent, and you're exactly right. You know, Tennessee Tech graduates a lot of these students every year. It's probably our greatest natural resource, if you want to think of it in those terms. And so it's a great opportunity to not only attract businesses from the outside to take a look at it, because they can get ready access to a very well-trained and very good workforce in that regard. But it's also an opportunity for us to grow our own. And in that regard, Dr. Soni, our new Vice President for Research and Economic Development that's here with me this evening, is helping us create an innovation center actually on the campus as well, so that we can take ideas that students generated. Most of you read enough in the popular media to understand that there are a lot of 18, 19, 20-year-olds around the country that are creating businesses at a very early age and doing exceptionally well. And so we want to try to create that kind of culture within the Tennessee Tech environment so that those students begin to see. And we're already beginning to see some of that. I had a student come visit with me just a few weeks ago, I think a junior, actually majoring in exercise science, but is starting a company based around a phone app that he's helped create, and it actually has some pretty significant potential. So those are the kinds of things that we're trying to stimulate. This is not the only way to do it, but this is something that we feel like is necessary, a necessary ingredient into the overall picture.
Do you have a mechanism or I don't want to say foundation or whatever, but to be able to work with companies that you guys get ideas, all right, and you know, I make chairs, okay, I'm not real, you know, technical, but I do know that you have the opportunity to be able to make really good gadgets and then bring them to market. I mean, do you have, from the idea, work it all the way through to where it would be commercially viable? Do you have that mechanism in place now?
Yes, we do. We absolutely do. And we're exploring some other things that we need to put in place as well, one of which is to create a research foundation for Tennessee Tech that would allow us to manage the intellectual property a little bit easier and with more fluency. Because when you're engaging a company that's already in existence, obviously they have concerns about the control of that intellectual property, and they want to ensure that it's protected. And so we want to make sure that we're protected as well, and so doing that through a foundation would be helpful. We're in the process of establishing that. But we have the mechanisms now doing any and all of that. And we work actually with businesses at all levels, from the startup level on through full development, depending on what their needs are and what the opportunities are. We have significantly ramped up our outreach effort to local corporations so that they know how they can engage us and we can help them as appropriate. But again, having even a campus as relatively small and manageable as Tennessee Tech, oftentimes companies don't exactly know who to talk to, who to interact with, and where to go. What this facility would enable us to do is to put sort of a front door to the corporate community to say, okay, if you've got a question, if you've got a partnership that you think might be of interest to you, here's the place you can go, here's the people that can work with you, and we can make sure to hold your hand to get whoever and whatever level of expertise is needed to assist. Does that make sense?
Sure. What about if you get your building up, okay, what about budget and staffing, and I mean, how is that all gonna work?
Well, that's, our vision is that it will be largely supported ultimately by the level of business that is transacted through that facility. So it would ultimately be self-supporting. Obviously, it would be difficult to be self-supporting on day one, and so there would be some startup costs initiated or at the front end. Tennessee Tech is fully committed to providing that kind of startup, and we would envision utilizing a portion of the building for an ongoing research center that would be appropriate for industrial application and interaction. So we want to make sure that there's ongoing activity there that would help stimulate more activity.
I appreciate you coming on short notice.
Oh, I'm glad to do it, anytime.
That's all I have.
I don't know if there's any other details, but Dr. Sony and colleagues could probably answer other questions if you have any.
Thank you.
Motion to approve. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that?
Dr. Ogle,
Mr.
can you
Short?
give us a timeline on when you think this would take place? You mentioned June as being the deadline.
Well, June 13th is when the proposal is due. The review process in Washington will typically take 4 to 6 months. I don't want to wait very long. So if we don't get an answer in a timely way, I'm prepared to go ahead and get started on this project regardless. We are in the process to build a new facility through the state process. We have to disclose a project through the state, through Tennessee Board of Regents and onto the Building Commission. We're in the process of disclosing this as a project in the June time frame, and so at that point in time, we could begin work on it at any point we were ready to go. Obviously, we want to bring in as many partners as possible and make the financials work a little bit easier. But ultimately, we know we need to get this done. So,
Any other discussion?
I have a question. From what I'm hearing, this is not going whether you get the grant or not. We're just going ahead and giving you the property.
giving us the opportunity to do what we said we would do. Yes, sir. To be able to put a building that would impact economic development. Absolutely. It wouldn't be for any other purpose than that.
So, in other words, you get the property whether you get the grant or not.
That's correct.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote, be a roll call vote.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you'll take your handsets. Hang on. Not too bad, it decides to go back on, so. Randy, we gotta do something with this system right here. Okay. Hang on. This thing stalls out. I don't know what makes it do that.
Technical difficulties.
Hang on. All right, now, if you take your handsets, if you favor the motion, vote yes. If you do not favor the motion, vote no. Everyone, please vote. Okay, Mr. Ford, you've hit not present, you need to hit the one that you want to vote, either yes or no, not, okay. Hang on, guys. Hang on. We gotta do some, no, not right now. Tell you what I think the system has done. It's stalled out, and we're gonna do some IT work on this thing this month. We probably need to do a roll call vote again. Sorry. Let's do this. Take your handsets, press yes for me. Everybody press yes. We're gonna do a roll call again and re-jumpstart this crazy computer. So hit yes for me. You're not voting on this. All right, now, everybody hit confirm again for me, please. Everybody hit confirm. Everybody press confirm. Thank you. All right, hang on. Let's do a second roll call. This is not my fault, this is the system's fault. I will not take the blame for it. Okay. Now, I'm not gonna be the fall guy on this one. All right, now we're gonna vote on the discussion. If you favor the motion, now vote yes. If you do not favor the motion, vote no. I apologize for the hiccup, but this system will do something about that. All votes in. Anyone wish to change their vote anywhere? Now, ladies and gentlemen, would you please press confirm for me? Everybody press confirm. All right, Mr. Chairman, you have 23 voting yes, 1 voting no, 0 absent. Motion carries.
The next item is where we moved up, due to the resignation of Charles Looper to the County Board of Equalization, a new appointment is needed. And I know Mr. Looper had requested a name as well. I hope he passed it on to a commissioner too. Okay.
Yes, Mr. Looper has recommended Mr. Kyle Bradley. I've known Kyle for quite some time, and I can certainly personally vouch for his integrity, his honesty. He's a business owner, so he has a business interest in Putnam County, and I heartily endorse Mr. Looper's recommendation that Kyle, Mr. Bradley, take his place on this board. So if you want to, I so move.
Commissioner Reel.
Yes, last month, I think, Ronald Franz was nominated from the East as well, and I would like to nominate him too.
Okay. Okay. So we've got Kyle Bilbrey, Ronnie Franz. Any other nominations from the commission? Entertain a motion to cease nominations?
So moved.
All right, we have a motion and a second to cease nominations. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. We'll vote on Kyle Bradley or Ronnie Franz.
Can I ask, I'm sorry,
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Chairman. Have they both been contacted, and are they both willing to serve? What about Mr. Franz? Do we know, have we verified his interest?
When he was nominated last month, I know he had interest in from nominating committee.
And who is the gentleman that's nominated out here? Is that you, sir? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
We're going to give them time to tell us who they are.
Okay. We'll let, I doubt Mr. Franz is here, but we'll let Mr. Bradley sure speak to address the podium.
Thank you. As Chairman Robert Williamson previously stated, I'm Kyle Bradley. I own the Bradley Agency, insurance agency in Monterey. I've owned that business for going on 5 years now. Born and raised in Monterey. My parents are Greg and Annette Whitaker of Monterey, and it would be a pleasure to serve on this board if elected, or your process. So, any questions? But thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Bradley? Thank you, sir.
All right. Anybody else? Are we ready to vote?
Do we know anything at all about Ronald Francis? I know Ronnie. He's a school teacher by trade. He has a maintenance company here in Cookville. His wife is a teacher out at Allgood Middle School. He's been in the area for several years. I think he's originally from Florida, and he lives up on Buck Mountain, and he is within the guidelines. He just asked to serve on this board.
Thank you.
Anything else? We ready to vote? I'm turn it over to Wayne.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, as I call your name, would you please give me your vote either for Bradley or for Franz? Is that France or Franz? Franz, okay, all right. Are you ready? All right. Mr. Ebersole?
Franz.
Mr. Short?
Bradley.
Mr. Duncan?
Bradley.
Mr. Martin?
Bradley.
Mr. Gentry? Mr. Ford? Mr. Ludwig?
Bradley.
Mr. Williamson?
Bradley.
Ms. Burrows?
Bradley.
Mr. Randolph?
Bradley.
Mr. Shanks?
Bradley.
Mr. Savage?
Franz.
Mr. Medley?
Bradley.
Mr. Troball?
Bradley.
Ms. Bryant? Ms. Neal?
Bradley.
Mr. Blair?
Bradley.
Mr. Williams? Mr. Maynard?
Bradley.
Ms. Bradford?
Ron.
Mr. Pierce?
Bradley.
Ms. Bowman?
Ron.
Ms. Reel?
Ron.
Mr. Atwood? Do anybody wish to change their vote anywhere? If my calculations are correct, Mr. Bradley receives 15, Mr. Franz receives 9. Mr. Bradley is elected to the board.
Congratulations. Unfinished business and action thereon by the board. Report of standing committees. Planning Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We do have one unfinished item. The personnel policy as proposed, was remanded back to the Personnel Policy Committee for further action with the elected department heads.
Thank you.
Other
Fiscal
than that,
review.
no unfinished.
Yes.
On that item, Personnel Policies Committee has scheduled a meeting date, June the 2nd, 2014, at 4:30 p.m. in these chambers, and I would ask that through Ms. Blaylock's office, that due public notice be issued so that everybody has an opportunity to be here.
What was that date again?
June the 2nd, it's Monday, June the 2nd, 2014. I'm sorry?
Yes.
I'd be happy to, thank you.
Maybe.
4:30. Monday, 6/2/14, 4:30 p.m., right here.
Fiscal Review Committee.
No unfinished business.
Nominating Committee.
No unfinished business.
Report of special committees. Other unfinished business. Quarterly reports and action thereon by the board. Road Fund, Randy Jones Supervisor. Any questions on that?
Did we
School
have-
Fund.
Excuse me, did we not have some, numbers that we were supposed to get from Parks and Rec, and
Haven't got there yet.
explanation, what's that?
I haven't got there yet.
Oh, you haven't? Okay, I'm sorry, apologize.
All right. We'll put them all together. Road fund, school fund, county general fund, debt service, solid waste, sanitation, self-insurance, parks and rec, all those funds. Mr. Eversole, you have a question?
Am I ready now? Sorry about that. Yeah, we were looking for updated numbers, and we had questions about Parks and Rec, why their income was so far off, and let me see, where was it?
That was the only thing that didn't get took care of at the meeting the other night, and I contacted Joyce. Part of it is just, they didn't get to do the leagues because the heat and air's been messed up, so that cost us a little. The rentals are down because of the heat and air. Soccer people have been billed except for Spring League, and she doesn't have the numbers from them to bill them for it yet. She said she's got about $15,000 she's gonna be turning over this month, so.
Yeah, it's quite a difference, so, we had estimated 60,000, and we'd only received 7,100, and
We're just in a trial and error with that. That was the number that she was using when we inherited it. It didn't materialize last year. We wasn't real sure, about it, so we lowered it a little. Looks like we need to lower it some more.
Any other discussion on these quarterly reports?
move approval.
Have a motion second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. New business. Planning Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Planning Committee recommends approval that Glenn Jones be appointed as Fairgrounds Manager.
I didn't hear the motion.
Was that a motion?
No, I was just reading.
I'm sorry, well, motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Commissioner Medley?
Okay, this seems to be a job. Could you tell me what the salary is?
I guess,
Mr. Jones, of course, is currently an employee of Putnam County. There would be no additional salary for him. We would pay a stipend, if you will, much like an athletic coach, of $4,000 a year. He would also receive 15% of any increase in funds that were received for the rental and use of the fairgrounds, with the exception of the fair. That number has been very low over the last few years. It's been less than $5,000. During that time last year, it was approximately $1,800 in rental income from the fairgrounds, excluding the fair. Of course, Mr. Jones currently has a position as the Putnam County Archivist. He would continue those duties, and this would essentially be a full-time responsibility, but of course you can understand that responsibility varies depending on what's going on. He would utilize his pool of community service workers to accomplish some things like that, but basically the desire was to have a full-time set of eyes on the facility, take care of any needs that need to be done, so that we don't have a situation 1 month before the fair where we're scrambling and putting a great deal of maintenance issues on Putnam County maintenance at that time. He would also work with all the people that would rent the facility, communicate with them, make sure that they take care of our facility, that they get it in good shape and they leave it in good shape. And if not, he would be tasked with taking care of those issues. But It's not a full-time position. It was deemed by the feasibility committee that it would be better to do it this way. We obviously agreed that we need someone, as has been pointed out in these chambers on several occasions. But as far as creating a completely separate position and trying to fund that, we didn't think that that part of it was feasible.
So who's paying the $4,000?
The county will.
The county is?
Yes.
Okay, even though it made $1,800 last year. Well, I would like to make the motion that since this is a position, that the $4,000 be removed and give the person that would like to receive this job 25% of whatever profit that they make us. And I would like to put this out to be out in the public to where this job could be, other people could apply for it. And I so move.
Second.
The amended motion?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so there's an amended motion with a second to change the original salary, the stipend, eliminate the $4,000, change the commission rate from 15% to 25%. Is that above the threshold that was set by the committee? Okay. And publicly advertised, opened up, so this is essentially removing Glenn, your motion removes Glenn as to taking that position tonight.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Does everybody understand that motion? Is there any discussion on that motion? Commissioner Williamson.
Commissioner Ebersol, you have the next first.
Well, I mean, I don't have any discussion on that motion. My concern is I'm not really clear that this job is clearly defined as to what the expectations of this fairgrounds manager is supposed to be. I mean, my question is, do they watch over the maintenance of the fairgrounds? Are they responsible for attracting events in? I mean, I don't have, I'd like to see a job description before I can vote on anything that has to do with this. I have no idea as to whether Mr. Jones is able to attract the kind of events there to actually start letting that thing generate revenue. I'm talking about the fairgrounds. I don't see a job description. So I can't even support this position right now.
Well, as far as the job description is in your material for this evening.
I don't think I got that.
And essentially, the way the committee understood what the concerns were is obviously the condition of the fairgrounds, the ability to attract events, market those as necessary. Some of that will be done in conjunction with the sports council as well, because essentially what we have is we have requests for available facilities to use for events, and to have somebody to communicate with those folks, to let them know what we have and to see if they are interested in using the facility, which basically now the process is that if you want to have an event, you contact Dennis's office and reserve that. Sometimes we get paid, sometimes we don't get paid. A lot of those are not for profit, and they don't pay anything to use the fairgrounds. And essentially it's just having somebody that's there, somebody that is able to recognize needs, somebody that's able to make sure in conjunction with Dennis that the county's facility is taken care of by both the maintenance department for the needs that are out there and by the people that want to use that facility for their events. You know, it was seen by the committee that this, in and of itself, having a person that is there and available, that it would increase the usage of the facility, and it would increase the best use of the facility by those events. You know, we have some paying events out there that is a substantial bill, much like rodeos or truck and tractor pulls, whatever it may be. But I think everybody will agree that the facility could be used much more. And we just don't have somebody at this point, and haven't had for a number of years, that promotes that facility and has eyes on to make sure that it's taken care of.
Well, what is his experience to be able to do that? Have you talked to anybody else?
Essentially because of what the committee felt, just amongst the people that were on the committee, we basically said, who do we have that's expressed interest in this, that has the capabilities to do what we felt like people were telling us that was needed for the facility. And his name was essentially recommended. He's very passionate about the facility. Of course, he's passionate about the history of the county, obviously, and the fairgrounds is part of that. He determined that he had the time to do it, which was one. Like I said, if we hire and make a completely separate position for this need, I think what we're going to see is that if we ask somebody to take it on, because it is, there's a lot of dates that are used, there's a lot of dates that could be used, and there's a lot that goes on with that. And if you ask somebody to do that for 25% of what they could generate for a position that's going to take that much time, we just did not, we didn't feel like that was something that we would attract too many people to do. Glenn Jones is basically the person that expressed the most interest in it. He's got plans for what he would like to see out there, and it was obvious to us that he cares a great deal about the facility and making sure that it's utilized correctly, and that we, as county taxpayers, and you as county commissioners, that a very valuable piece of property is used more, that it's an asset for the community and organizations that want to use it, and that it's taken care of. But other than that, the committee wants to see what's best for the fairgrounds be done. If you guys want to, the pay structure basically was discussed with him, and we tried to come up with something that was enough to for him to want to do the job, because it is going to take some significant time, but not have to hire a completely new person to do that. Like I said, he's already a county employee, but that's completely up to you.
I don't doubt his passion for it. Thank you.
Mr. Williamson?
Thank you. Okay. What we have before us is really the expansion of an existing employee's job duties, okay? And as such, I don't have a problem with making this arrangement. However, Commissioner Medley's recommendation would be adding, in my view, a new employee to the county workforce. That being the case, we're faced with a decision now as to whether we're going to hire somebody who is a fair manager and establish that as a separate entity and position. And I'm all in favor of recruiting for that, as you all know. So if we go that route, we're actually, I don't know if we need to talk to the pay scales people or whatever, but we're creating a new position. So we either want to do that, or we're going to expand an existing county's job duties. And that's where we are at this point. So I don't know if that was the intention that you had, Commissioner Medley, to establish a new position or what. But my only comment is, if we're going to expand Mr. Jones's job duties and pay him a stipend of $4,000, I just want to be sure that we come up with whatever we need to, whether it's a contract or whatever, in order to pay him a percentage of the new proceeds that he'd be receiving. I just want to be sure we have that as a legal ability to pay him those dollars, which clearly could be different from year to year, and could get into some significant dollars as well. So, I just want to point out, if we accept this motion, we're creating a new position.
Commissioner Short.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I think that it's wise that we do go forward with the 4,000. I think that's a good use of our money, and I think the 15% is fair. But Kim, I have a couple questions for you. When the income comes into the fairgrounds, whose budget is it under currently?
The maintenance collects the money and then it's turned over to the general fund.
Right, so it comes through maintenance. Will it continue to go through maintenance?
Well, as far as the rental fees, yes.
Then how are we gonna track the effectiveness?
That's what I was sitting there thinking. You know, if the only way you could do this is if they're recruiting events that we put on. Because if we're the ones putting them on, we're the ones getting the money. You know, it'd be hard to pay off a percentage, like, say, somebody goes out there and has a truck pull. Well, we don't know how much money they've made. I mean, I don't know how we would handle that.
No, it's revenue.
Unless that's...
It's revenue to the county, it's the only thing that you're concerned
Just the
about.
rental fee. See, the event itself, whoever's putting it on gets the money.
Right, we're not paying a percentage of what the person who puts on the event makes. We're only saying that we're gonna pay him a 15% of what income the county generates from this event, right? Rental fee, that's it.
Which is nothing. I mean, it could be substantial, but,
And is he gonna sign contracts for the county when we, agree to rent it to someone? Is Glenn gonna be the one that's putting together those contracts?
he'd be, yes, in conjunction with maintenance department.
Okay, what does Tater have to do with putting on a tractor pull?
Right now, they're the ones that handle the contracts. They handle the contracts, make sure they've got the insurance. I'm sure if Glenn does this, then he would probably take that part over.
I would think that he would have to,
Yeah.
don't you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Commissioner Medley.
Kim, this is my goal. My goal is, if we hire a fairground manager, my goal is for this guy to put on the events. And whatever money that he makes on this event, he gets 15% and we get the rest.
Yeah,
I'm not talking about somebody else. I'm talking about this man here that we're putting in charge of our piece of property about putting on events. You could have something at this fairground every week. If he's getting a percentage instead of a salary, it gives him an incentive to make more money, which makes us more money. So what we're really looking at is this fella here is to be the guy that actually goes out here and recruits the events that he's putting on to make us money, which makes him money. That's what I'm looking at. You know, I don't understand what the rest of it's about, but it's basically about this fairground actually making money that we can actually get.
Commissioner Reel.
Well, I'm just really confused with the way you all think. Because if you want somebody to go out there and put every weekend into putting events on, $4,000 is a lot of money if you sit there and you calculate it out. And like you said, the more he rents and the bigger events he gets, 15% is what he will be getting. If he rents it for $10,000, he'll get 15% of that, and the county will get the other. It's not what the event brings in. And if we took in $1,800 last year, then evidently, and Kim, you don't know where the money's going or who brings in the money, but all we could come up with in totals was $1,800, then evidently we're not charging anybody to rent it anyway. So that's my thinking on it, and I don't know how
the people who are we've got a provision in there if it's nonprofits. And most of it's just like Relay for Life, Habitat, all that, they don't get charged.
Okay.
Just
I know, I'm
like
on the
when-
fair board, and when we have the fair for 11 days, we pay anywhere from $8,000 to $10,000 for electricity to use the fairgrounds. We pay our own water bill. So to me, it would cost a lot of money just to turn the lights on over there. So
Well-
$1,800 for all those events, who pays the electricity when they get to use the fairgrounds? So
If-
that's what we're trying to do, is to hire a fairground manager that can oversee this. He can write the contracts, he can bring the money in, and then he can work with Tater or the county maintenance so that they can work together. But I guarantee you that if Glenn rents the fairgrounds, he's gonna know and write the contracts, he's gonna know what comes in.
And I will
can assure
say
you
this,
that.
and until, if you want to fully utilize that fairground, we're gonna have to spend some money and enclose, maybe, I don't know, what do you call it, the hog barn or whatever? Enclose something with heat and air, because there's nothing with heat out there that is usable space. I mean, you could be using it for gun shows like they have over at Sparta. You could be using it for things like that and rent it for things like that, but we don't have it fixed to use it that way. I mean, so right now, it's just basically what you can get in the warmer weather, and that's it.
Commissioner Ludwig.
Kim, Glenn reports directly to you, correct? How does Tater get involved in this? Explain it to me.
Glenn, the way it is right now, Glenn doesn't have anything to do with the fairgrounds other than his passion and his spare time that he puts into it. The maintenance department takes care of the rentals right now. I mean,
Will that change if Glenn takes it?
yeah, if Glenn gets assigned this duty, then he would do it. It's like, we had a meeting today, what is that, Teen Challenge is gonna have some kind of mud run out there to raise money, and we met with them today. It's a non-profit.
Commissioner Williamson.
I'm satisfied with the answers I received.
All right, Commissioner Atwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I think we're kind of getting wrapped up in more than we need to, it seems to me like. This is pretty simple and pretty clear cut, it looks like. I don't think we can go anywhere and get a manager, and let's remember what the word manager means. So when we ask what he's going to do, he's going to manage that facility. That means he's going to go out and solicit for people to utilize the facility. He's going to determine what the changes are, and he's going to bring them either to Kim and then to this body, and we'll decide whether those changes are going to be made. We're not saying and giving him a free rein to do as he wishes. What we're saying is we need somebody who's out there and who will manage it for us. I mean, that's pretty simple, it sounds to me like. We're debating the cost. You know what, I mean, I've been a salesman most of my life, and I've worked for commissions. That's all we're saying is, I'd rather work for a commission as a salesman. Pay me for what I do. That's what we're asking him to do. If you succeed, we're going to pay you, and we're going to compensate you for it. It's strictly a commission structure. And for $4,000, we can get a guy, we can give him his benefits to manage the facility. I mean, I'm confused at what aside from that, we've got rules out there. There are already rules in place that dictate how events are supposed to be billed and what the charges of those are. And one of those rules is even nonprofits supposedly get a 50% discount. Well, either change that, or this manager will, in my opinion, it's his role to make sure that's the way it's done. He's going to follow the rules that we have in place. So, you know, I know we give it away free now. If that's what we want to do, I'm okay with that. But that's not what the rule says. The rule says 50%. So I'm looking to whoever this person is, and I firmly, specifically think Glenn will do a great job for the passion that he's got. We'll
abide by the rules and make sure when people come to him that those rules are followed and the fees are collected and that money deposited in the county, and then I'm for paying him for doing such. Thank you. Commissioner Duncan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to, go over what Mr. Atwood said, that the current fee schedule that the maintenance department is using, which they faxed on April the 10th, was, discount for approved nonprofit groups, 501c3 status, is supposed to be 50% off of the rental price. It's not supposed to be free. Thank you.
Commissioner Randolph.
And that's another thing too. I mean, that, to me, I'm in total agreement. These rental agreements, all of these things that we've talked about, they don't need to be handled by Tater at the maintenance department. We need somebody with hands-on experience that's there every day, that sees what's going on out there, that coordinates that facility, or any changes that need to be made, or any suggestions that need to be made, that he can bring to Kim and they can bring to us, and we can make those changes. We don't need Tater in the loop. Tater is there to work with Glenn and with Kim's office and with us to do what needs to be done out there annually to keep the fairgrounds up to speed so that we can rent the fairgrounds and be proud of what we have out there. And I think Glenn, a good manager, surely he has ideas. You know Glenn like I do. He has a lot of ideas. And he'll be coming to Kim with ideas, and he'll be coming to us with ideas about things that he can do with the fairgrounds. In my opinion, we're not paying him a whole lot of money for what we'll be getting out of him. And I think we need to give him a chance to utilize the fairgrounds and bring events into the facility and to keep the facility maintained. That's all we're asking for.
Commissioner Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I feel we're real fortunate to have someone like Glenn that'll step up and do what he said he'll do and told us at our last meeting. And the job description is there. It's pretty clear. I really would like to see us vote and move on.
Commissioner Troball.
I was just gonna say Glenn's a good guy. I've known him a long time, and I believe he does a radical job on this fire board manager. But I will support this if we go by the book. 50%, 50%.
Commissioner Bradford.
Yes, I'd like to clarify one thing. Glenn's not going to be part of the fair board. The fair board will still be its own entity. Glenn is going to be a fairgrounds manager. This management position will work with the fair board to put on a 10-day fair and anyone else wishing to use that facility. But this has nothing to do with the fair board.
Any other discussion? We will vote on the amendment. Do a roll call vote.
Restate that.
Okay, the amendment was to eliminate the $4,000 stipend, change the commission from 15 to 25%, publicize the job opening.
Thank you.
Anything else, Commissioner Manning? All right. That's it. All right. You want to try the voice vote? I want a roll call vote.
All right, here we go. Here we go. Take your handsets. If you favor the amendment, voting on the amendment only, then press yes. If you do not favor the motion, vote no. Everyone please vote. Stop right there for me. All votes are in. Anyone wish to change their vote anywhere? All right, would you please press confirm for me, ladies and gentlemen? Everybody press confirm. Everybody press confirm. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, you have 20 voting no, 3 yes, 1 abstain. The amendment fails. Now you're back to the original motion.
Any discussion on the original motion? All right, let's vote. Be a roll call vote again.
All right. Take your
Chairman, I do
handsets.
have a bit of discussion.
Pardon me?
I'd like to amend that we enter the rate of, the list of charges that we have for the fairgrounds. I think that should be included in the motion as a guideline for, Mr. Jones. So in other words, I guess I'm amending it to the point where I say that, we are asking him to follow the guidelines of the rate charges as distributed to the commission. No, it's not something we distributed today, it's something we've had in the past. It's just a list of charges for the fair site, guidelines for him.
Point of order, Mr. Chair, why would that be necessary? Excuse me,
I'm trying to figure that
Commissioner.
one out myself. I mean, he should do that already.
Well, it's a rule. I mean, and if he's the manager, he's got to follow the rules. So if there is an amendment to that rule, he would bring the amendment. Other than that, he would follow the rule. I mean, so in my opinion, that's his mandate to start with.
We just need to make him aware of the rules. Just make sure he fully understands the rules.
That's all I'm trying to do.
Okay. All right.
Never mind.
Any other discussion on that? Okay, we'll
All right, please take your handsets. If you favor the motion, back is the original motion, vote yes. If you're not in favor of the motion, vote no. Everyone, please vote. All votes are in. Anyone wish to change their vote anywhere? All right, please press confirm for me, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody press confirm. Mr. Martin. There you go. Thank you, sir. 22, Mr. Chairman, voting yes, 2 no. No absent, motion carries.
On the fiscal review.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item 2A, Fiscal Review Committee recommends approval of budget amendments to the county general fund as presented, and I so move.
Second.
We have motion and second. Any discussion? All right.
Seeing none, if you'll take your handsets, if you favor the motion, vote yes. If you do not favor the motion, vote no. Everyone, please vote. All votes are in. Anyone wish to change their vote anywhere? Please press confirm for me, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody press confirm. Everybody press confirm. Mr. Medley. Thank you, sir. All right. Mr. Chairman, 24 voting yes, 0 no, 0 absent. Motion carries. Hang on a second, Scott. Thank you, sir.
All right, item 2B recommends approval to change the TCRS plan for the county employees, and I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any discussion? Commissioner Bryant.
I just have one question. This is to take the current plan that we have in place, do away with that, and create a plan called a 401K. Is that correct?
Yes, please.
No, that's not correct. The current plan stays in effect for all employees hired prior to January the 1st, 2015. The new plan is a hybrid plan which contains both a defined benefit portion and a 401K portion, or a defined contribution portion. The big advantage of the new plan is that it contains several measures that the state has implemented that will limit the county's cost to 9% of salaries. That is not in the current plan, but this again only affects employees hired after January the 1st, 2015.
Okay, so we're not doing away with the plan, but those that are currently on TCRS will stay under a grandfather plan. And the 401K will become effective January 1, 2015 if it passes tonight. The other thing that I'd like to make note here to this commission is that, yes, the portion, the defined portion that the county will pay will be reduced. But the employee will have to stay longer we said 12 years at our meeting the other night, but it's really not, it's 6, because age and years in service all have to match. You have to have 30 years of service at age 60. Well, we have employees that started to work at age 18 here, and so if they work 30 years, that's going to put them working until they're 48 on the current plan and being able to retire with full benefits. But if we go with the 401k that you guys are looking at, you're looking at, they're going to have to work an additional 6 years on the high end of your salary before they can even be eligible to retire. So think about that.
The new plan does contain what's called the Rule of 90. This is the same plan that all teachers across the state will be under, beginning any teacher hired after July the 1st, 2014 will be under the same plan that we are adopting or proposing to adopt. It does have the Rule of 90, and that you can retire under the new plan at age 65 or under the Rule of 90, which is a combination of years of service and age.
Commissioner Atwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Then I'm a little confused. Commissioner Bryant, my understanding and what I heard the very first thing is that the people presently will be grandfathered. Right. So they won't have to be working any longer because they won't come under the new rule. Those hired after that will come under it, and if they're hiring, they will understand what the new rule is. So, it's just like any employment. Once I go to employment, they tell me what the salary is, they tell me what my benefit is, and I determine whether that's something I can work for or not. I'm confused if in fact that's not correct. Because you mentioned somebody started at age 18, they'd have to work 6 more years. Well, if they're grandfathered, I don't see how that's affected. Am I wrong about that?
A new employee.
Okay, so again, your example is insignificant to really the what you said was 6 more years. The new employee will, and he'll understand that before he's hired, or he or she, excuse me.
The current employees will be grandfathered, and that would still stay under the same TCRS guidelines. What I used my example for was a new employee and their salary. If we hire them on at 18, a new employee starting January of 2015, let's clarify that. 18, we hire them right out of high school, which a lot do come here from high school. 30 years would only put them at age 48. Okay, are you following me so far?
Absolutely.
Okay, good deal. Then, another 12 years would put them age 60, but if you use their age and their years of service, you can reduce that by 6 years.
Okay, and I appreciate all that, and I understand all that, and in all due respect, I've worked for several folks. I've never had that good a plan myself that I could retire at 56 or whatever. I mean, the world as it exists, that's a pretty good perk that the present county employees. Not that I'm against it, don't misunderstand, but it's a pretty nice perk, yet it's an expensive one for the county, and what we're saying is we're trying to get out of that situation so that it's fair. I mean, again, they're hired in a situation that they understand, and, you know, I'd love to retire. I'm 62. I'd like to have done that about 4 or 5 years ago myself, but it wasn't an option for me, so I don't see that as a deficit. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. I don't see that that's a bad thing, being as for a new employee anyway. They understand that and they know that.
Commissioner Neal.
People are healthier and they're living much longer today. So it's just reality that government or just private practice is going to have to consider this in their payroll. Or else we're going to have some that are in trouble. It's just reality. We're living longer and we're going to have to look at ways to cut back, whether it's county or not, and especially where it's county, because the taxpayers are paying for it. And not many taxpayers have an income or a job where they can retire at age 48. So that's a definite plus.
Ms. Blaylock.
Well, I would rather see you guys put this off. It's a benefit cut, and Commissioner Duncan stated himself the other night that it's not anything that's gonna save money for the county right away. It's the risk of the rate going up in the future. And the lady said that it could, our part could go above 9% even on that hybrid plan when she was here the other night. And, you know, this plan was all so great. There's a lot of cities, governmental entities, counties in the state, and the lady said there was only 5 entities. That's counting cities, counties, any kind of local government entities that have switched to this plan. And, you know, we work to try to get our benefits up for employees. We don't pay the best in the world, but the benefits are decent. And you know, the bridge, that was done in order to save money by getting the higher paid people out. Well, right now, if you're forcing people to work 6 more years on the high end, that's $72,000 an employee. More we'd be paying out a year per employee over that 6-year period. And, you know, the bridge, this won't affect the people on the bridge because they've got their own plan. But like our EMS, you know, if I'm a paramedic and I can go to Overton County or whatever, anybody, and work 30 years and retire with full benefits, and I look at Putnam County and I go, well, I'll have to work basically 36 years if I give my career, which place do you think they're going to go? We don't want to start our turnover again. And if it was a money issue now, you know, our actuarial's been going back down. Since the economy's getting better, our actuarial's going down. What is it, Aries? 10.05. 10.05, and it'll continue to go back down as the economy gets better. I don't think it's a decision that you have to make right now, and it's definitely a benefit cut. I think it'll affect, especially maybe not so much in the regular offices, but in the emergency part of it, it'll work on his recruiting too. I'd just like to see you not do it right now for those reasons.
I was gonna say something, I'm not going to. No. Commissioner Eversole.
I have a question. Is it mandatory that they retire after 30 years in service? So basically your argument is that we don't want to keep them on the high end past 30 years. Do they get a lower wage after 30 years? Okay, so pretty much if you're 48 and you still want to continue on to work, you're going to stay at your current rate and add 6 more years. So I don't see your point on that one.
Most people get to 30 years, they go.
99.9.
But they don't have to.
Commissioner Williams.
Is there any kind of provision or separate chapter, if you will, within this for the emergency services? Many places, emergency services are a separate category. They're deemed hazardous duty. They retire in a lesser time. There's nothing. It's all the same. Okay, thank you.
We will vote on the motion. Yes. Roll call.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yes, we're fiscal review. It's B. This is recommending the approval to change the TCRS plan for county employees, just like it states on the agenda. All right, if you'll take your handsets, ladies and gentlemen, if you favor the motion, vote yes. If you do not favor the motion, vote no. Everyone, please vote. Wait, before you confirm for me, just a second, Mr. Williams. All votes are in. Anyone wish to change their vote anywhere? All right, now, ladies and gentlemen, would you please press confirm for me, please? Everybody, press confirm. Sniff. We have 13 voting no, 11 voting yes, 0 absent. Motion fails.
Mr. Chairman, under TCA 124101. I'd like to challenge the vote of the county general employees who did not declare a conflict of interest.
Okay. All right.
Isn't that a moot point since this doesn't affect them at all? It doesn't affect them at all, they're grandfathered. I mean, it doesn't have anything to do with them. I don't see how it's conflict of interest.
Be correct.
I would refer it to, Mr. Jones.
Mr. Jones.
In the back of your commission rules, there's a section entitled Conflict of Interest. In basically what we're talking about county officials or county employees. We're talking about an indirect conflict of interest. But let me just read what 124101 says. It says, a conflict of interest exists if a county officer or an employee, and this is the preamble in your section in your book, is required to supervise or vote on a contract in which he or she has some kind of investment or concern. Most of the time, a conflict of interest involves a financial relationship, but the interest may also be one of supervisory control. Under general state law, direct conflict of interest is prohibited, while an indirect conflict may be allowed if disclosed. Directly interest means a contract with which the official is personally involved or with any business in which the official is the sole proprietor. As far as indirect conflict of interest goes,
Jeff, here's what I'm reading at.
yeah, you got the full.
That paragraph.
Talking about the paragraph on the second second page. Yeah. It says a county commissioner whose employment with the county began on or after the date in which he was elected, appointed to the county may not... Paragraph above that? The vote of any commissioner having a conflict of interest who does not so inform the governing body of the conflict shall be void if challenged in a timely manner. As used in the statute, timely manner means during the same meeting at which the vote was cast or prior to the transaction of any further business of the body. So basically what you're saying, Bob, is that your challenge is timely. I guess the question that I'm having is whether or not they have an indirect conflict of interest. And usually that has to do with budgetary matters and things such as that. So, I guess the question is whether or not this is a budgetary matter. Well, obviously the way to manage this thing is just to make usually what we do is err on the side of making the disclosure and just re-vote it.
No, that's not what the law says.
Well, you're asking that...
I'm saying that I think that their votes are void, and that changes the number required from, because there'd only be 20 people eligible to vote.
A county commissioner, according to the statute and the provision from the CTES, says cannot vote on the appropriation resolution, county budget, or for any appropriation that directly or indirectly benefits him financially as a county employee. So the question would be whether or not these county employees were directly or indirectly benefited financially as county employees. I'm presuming that since they were county employees prior to coming onto the commission, that their conflict would be indirect. I also question whether or not they'd be directly benefited by this.
They still didn't disclose that they had a potential conflict. The only time we do that is in August when we vote on the budget. But that's not really what the law says, the way I'm reading.
Well, I guess the question, Bob, is whether or not they have the conflict to disclose in the first place. And that's the question is whether or not they were directly or indirectly benefited financially as a county employee. So the question is whether this motion, by changing TCRS, would benefit or not benefit them, or benefit them directly or indirectly as a county employee. That's the question.
If it was approved, it would leave more dollars in the budget to pay salaries.
That would directly or indirectly benefit them as a county employee. Maybe just a little thin, I think.
As parliamentarian, I would just say, I do, for what it's worth, I don't see that there is any direct or indirect conflict, because it doesn't have any effect on anyone voting up here. This is about future employees, future employee benefits. It's not about anyone that sits up here. So that would be my ruling on that. It's up for the chair to decide.
I'm gonna have to rule no conflict on this one, as much as I hate to. I'm gonna agree with our county attorney and parliamentarian, so we'll move forward.
Okay. So, are we clearing the board going on?
Commissioner Shanks.
I don't see how in the world there'd be any conflict there when it's the same thing we got now going. It's no change. Voted no. How can it, we're operating the same thing now. There's no difference in it. How can it be in conflict? If it is, they've been in conflict for ever since they've been here.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah, clear the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item 2C, recommends to consider budget preparation calendar and to discuss solid waste fees for cities.
Well, you've got the budget calendar, and I guess the question, and I really don't know that that really has anything to do with the budget calendar, but Bob wanted to talk about the solid waste fees for the cities. And Keith's got some numbers on those. I think maybe in solid waste committee meetings y'all have talked about it, but, you know, as far as the only people that are, cities that are paying those are our smaller cities, which is Monterey, Ogden, and Baxter. And they were having a hard time coming up with what we changed just recently, and we did it. It was such a budgetary issue for these smaller cities that we did it over a 3-year period. $10 the first year, $10 the next year, $10 the next year. It's up to $30 a ton. And Keith can share those numbers with you. You know, we don't recommend that you do anything, adjust our solid waste fees any higher than what they are for the cities or the regular customers. So I'll let Keith take it over.
Prior to July 1 of 2009, each one of these 3 cities paid $80 a month, which is $960 a year. We discussed that in solid waste, and also discussed it in full commission. So beginning July 1 of 2009, we implemented $10 a ton per year. 2010, we upped it to the $20, and then 2011, we finalized on the $30 a ton. At that $30 a ton for fiscal year 2012, 2013, instead of the $960 a year that we were getting, the city of Baxter actually paid us $18,001. The city of Monterey paid us $49,836, and the city of Allgood paid us $71,605.80. I also had my billing clerk to pull the records for this fiscal year, which is July 1 of 13 through today, and we will still have monies coming in May, June, and July to finish up this. So this is not a solid number. City of Allgood so far has already paid $62,446. City of Baxter has paid $15,475. And the city of Monterey up to today has paid $42,709. I don't know what y'all want to do with that, if or when you wanna do anything with that, or if we need to run this back through solid waste again to discuss it again, but I mean, that'll
What does a private hauler pay?
45 a ton.
Point of order.
Yes, ma'am. Are you through with your presentation?
I'm finished with my presentation.
Mr. Short?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think, Kim, I think what we were trying to get at was not, solid waste was one example of what other communities are making decisions on because their budget is being formed now, as opposed to ours being done in 2 months or 3 months. This was really an item that reflected the calendar and the basis that we're waiting so long to get into the calendar year that if something like solid waste needed to be changed, there'd be no time for others to react to it. And that was what the purpose of this piece of discussion was all about. It wasn't about the actual cost of it so much. But we have a calendar. It's late. I make a motion, we approve the calendar.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the calendar. Any discussion on that motion? Commissioner Williamson?
Yeah, I just had one quick question. Is it appropriate for us to give direction to the Budget Committee to advise them it is not the will of this commission to increase fees to the city at this time?
I don't know that it matters.
Well, I will make that motion then that at this time the County Commission directs the Budget Committee to assume that there are no waste fee increases to the cities.
All right, we have, I guess this is a substitute motion to approve the budget calendar and not raise fees at this time.
Yes.
All right, have substitute motion, second by... Any discussion on this substitute motion? All right, we will, Commissioner Maynard.
I would just say, I think we're setting a little bit of a dangerous precedent when we start tying the hands of the Budget Committee before they get to meet. Whatever we do, we're bringing to the full commission for an up or a down. I would prefer the Budget Committee be able to look at everything, and then if we feel like something's justified, make our argument to the commission, and at that time, vote on it. Withdraw my second.
Sorry? My only concern is by the time we get it to make that recommendation, if this body decides to raise those fees, it may be too late for the cities who have already put their budgets in place.
I understand. Okay. Any other discussion on this substitute motion?
I withdrew his second.
Oh, he withdrew his second.
I'll second it.
Commissioner Duncan, second? Okay. Second from Bill. All right. Now, let's roll call the substitute motion, just to get it over with.
Let's go back, restate.
The motion is, recommend the budget calendar as presented, and to not raise fees on municipalities at this time for the budget, direction to the Budget Committee to not seek to raise fees at this time.
Everybody understand? Understand the motion? All right. If you'll take your handsets then, ladies and gentlemen, if you favor the substitute motion, please press yes. If you do not favor that substitute motion, vote no. Everyone, please vote. Mr. Blair. All right, all votes are in. Anyone wish to change their vote anywhere, please press confirm for me, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody press confirm. All right. 15 voting yes, 9 no, 0 absent. Substitute motion passes.
That concludes fiscal review.
All right. Nominating committee. No new business?
No items.
Report of special committees? Resolutions?
There are no resolutions, Mr. Chairman.
Election of notaries.
Frederick R. Baker, Brenda G. Copeland, Stephen B. Garrett, Christy Harris, Heather Hatch, Joshua B. Hopener, Terry L. Johnson, Angela Leathers, Jim McCaleb, Tammy Melton, Carlos Humberto Perez, Pamela Phillips, Emily Rich, and Kenneth Wells.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, we'll vote.
Take your handsets, ladies and gentlemen. In favor of the motion on the notaries, please vote yes. If you're not in favor of the motion, vote no. It's an important vote they have to do that. All right, would you please press confirm for me, please, ladies and gentlemen? Everybody press confirm for me, please. Mr. Martin. Thank you, sir. 24 voting yes, 0 no. Motion carries. Thank you so much.
In other new business, ratification of private act for Putnam County Private Chapter 41, House Bill 2511, Senate Bill 2603 pertaining to the bidding process approval by the state of Tennessee, April 16th, 2014.
Okay, if y'all remember, it was brought to our attention that back in 2008, we had changed, the commission voted to change the bid limit, but we had neglected to revise our private act. And so you voted to do the private act, they send it back, and we have to ratify it. So we just need to ratify the private act.
Move approval.
We have motion second. Any discussion on this ratification?
roll call it because it's...
Don't worry, we'll roll call it.
I don't know nothing we hadn't roll called, you know? Okay.
All right.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, would you take your handsets. If you favor the motion, vote yes. If you're not in favor of the motion, vote no. Everyone, please vote. Mr. Gentry. All right. Anyone wish to change their vote anywhere? All right. Would you please press confirm for me, ladies and gentlemen? Everybody press confirm, please. 24 voting yes, 0 no, 0 absent. Motion carries. Hang on just a second. Good. All right. Thank you, sir.
Next item is approval of county officials' bonds as follows. Barbara Bandy, assessor of property with Nationwide Mutual Insurance, bond amount of $50,000.
Motion to approve. Second.
We have motion and second. Any discussion? All right. All right, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, announcements and statements. I'd like to thank everyone for a lively debate tonight. Be careful going home. We will stand adjourned.